Let's jump in right into it.
And you are Michelle Kuei.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I should have had your book right here. I can go grab it. You recently wrote a book,
Yes.
Perfectly Normal.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was excited to talk to you because you have a very unique, I feel like a very unique life story that is different from what I have. Like, I don't know, just talking to different people is kind of exciting, and hearing about what you've learned and things that you've witnessed through your practice and all that is exciting to me. So,
Yeah. Me too. I'm excited.
so you describe yourself. Because I've watched your videos. You have a intro that you give if you wanna.
Yeah. So the intro I gave was it's really about how we all take things for granted. Every day, every morning, you get up and you put on your shoes. The minute that you put on your shoes, you're about to step into this role that you play in your life. So whether you're father, mom, uh, accountant, anything that you name, it's a role that we go into, that we play, right? So and we start to take things for granted, knowing that tomorrow is just gonna be another day, or today is just gonna be another day. But little do we know that there are days where you get up and something changed, and that something changed your life completely. Whether it's something good or something that's very unfortunate or tragic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So instead of taking things for granted, and this is I'm kind of giving it away ahead of time.
Sure, sure.
Instead of taking things for granted, I feel that we should be living our life as if today is our last day.
Dang. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's definitely something I have been observing more in hearing. Because okay, there's always when you look at the famous people, like the famous actors, are like, oh, I want to be that. I want once I'm that, I'll be happy. And then you hear from those people, and they're still unhappy, and they have to learn the lesson of what you're saying is like just live in the moment and enjoy life and be grateful for what you have, or whatever we can get more into that, but
Right.
it's definitely easier said than done, I feel like, which is what we'll talk more about. Because you are, how do you introduce yourself to people? Do you introduce yourself as a
I,
what kind
I'm
of yeah?
I'm a confidence and leadership coach.
Okay.
And so the population I'm working with primarily involved with negative self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
And that negative self-talk we all experience. And it's something that a lot of us feel it's there. It's kind of like a finger that's poking on your rib
Mm-hmm.
all the time, and you know it's there, but you can't quite get it out. It's like a little splint in your hand. You can't get it out, but you know it's there, and it's
Okay.
bothering you and causing a lot of um, roadblocks or speed bumps for you. And all your life, you've been maybe successful in doing a lot of things, and you have great achievement financially, personally, but yet there's something in there that makes you doubt yourself, that makes you feel that maybe I'm not good enough for this. Maybe I don't have what it takes to become successful. And so those are the people I work with, that negative self-talk, that self-doubter, that warrior. And sometimes people would say it's imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
although there's a distinction between the negative self-talk versus imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is something that's more psychologically serious, because it becomes a pattern. Your negative self-talk become a pattern that you don't realize that you're having these patterns. Imposter syndrome is something that, for example, you would say yes to the following.
Mm-hmm.
When you are successful in doing something, but you don't feel that you deserve it, right? So
Right.
we could be in a very great position, and we don't feel that we deserve it. Whereas negative self-talk, it's not as severe. It's something that you and I go through every single day. That minute that we start, like right now as we're talking, there's something going on in our mind, in our head, that we're doing the self-talk. Whether it's good or bad, it's a self-talk. And unfortunately, sometimes those self-talk, it turns into something that's very negative, something that's very destructive, and it causes our inability to move forward or taking action in life. So if I'm constantly doubting myself in all the ways that I perform in life, then it makes perfect sense why we're not taking things in action, and we continue to uncheck all the things that we have on our bucket list.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess one thing that I wanted to talk about. I mean, we have plenty to talk about, but
Right.
I wanted to talk about how. Okay, before we jump into your past, let's talk about who you are now and how you feel how have you? Because I'm assuming you live by the same practices that you're preaching, as you try to live in the way that you're teaching
Mm-hmm.
the negative self-talkers to live. So how have you come into, or how big of a part of your life has that become for you, or how do you approach life right now?
So this person right now you see,
Yeah.
it's not the same person you would see or know years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be sitting here and talking to you or speaking to you with confidence. That's number one. And there's three things that I've learned in life, and I call them my basic ABCs.
Okay.
So my A is my authenticity. How well do you know yourself? And once you get to know yourself, are you showing up in the world being you? And it's a really hard concept for a lot of people to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, in the world of where everybody is trying to be somebody, how do you really truly be yourself
Yeah.
and honoring that authenticity? So that was number one, authenticity. The second thing that I've learned is, I'm going to jump through the B because I'll come back to it. The third thing that I've learned was connection. Connection is our ability to create that and build that relationship with others, and also the relationship with ourselves. And it goes back to being authentic. If you can be authentic and speak what is on your mind,
Yeah.
how do you show up and interact with other people without offending that person or feeling that you're being judged? Right? So that connection is really important in our lives to get us to places. So the relationship that we build every single minute, it is pushing us forward, whether it's mentally, spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. It's through that interconnectedness that we all have with each other, human to human.
Yeah.
I see you as a person. I
Mm-hmm.
see me in you, and I see you in me. And we're all the same. And that is connection to me. Now, in order to go from being authentic to connect with the rest of the world, what you need is the second piece, which is bravery. You have
Okay.
to be
Okay.
brave,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is a connector between showing up in the world, saying what is on your mind, and knowing that everything that you said is a true reflection of who you are. And that's how you build that connection.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you build that deep, meaningful connection with others. And when you do that, the whole universe is, I call it a synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
So when you show up in the world being who you are, and you have that power of influencing and creating impact in others, then the whole universe would be synchronized, and all the circumstances and event would meet you where you are. And that is success to me.
Yes. So when you say who you are right now is not who you were years ago, how define? All right. So now we can. Okay, because the way I see it, it feels like a step-by-step process. You can't jump straight to bravery. You have to first. Is it? Does it go in the order of the ABCs, where authenticity comes first before you can do anything else? Because I feel like I'm in a place where I'm pretty confident in who I am, um, but I could imagine another part of myself that gets instantly overwhelmed by all of the stuff that you just said, where it's like, wait, I have to know, first of all, wait, who am I? What do I want? Oh, wait, I have to be confident in that, and I have to be confident enough where I can talk to people and be myself in front of them too. Like, that's a lot to ask.
Hmm.
So how did you, or okay, how,
What
like,
is the process of
yeah,
getting there?
for you, how early did you consciously start thinking about your authenticity, or was that a thing that just happened, or how did you?
It
Did,
was a long journey
yeah.
because I've been all my life, just like everyone else, I'm trying to be somebody. And that somebody means that I go to school, I have a higher education, and my parents was really big on education. And that was the whole reason why we moved to this country, is so that our their kids, their children have more opportunity in education. And so they always push us to have better education, have a good job so that you can provide for yourself. So all my life, I was living in a shoebox.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the box that was given to me, and this is how I'm going to shape myself in becoming. For a long time, I thought I was just going to be a pharmacist. That's all I'm going to do. All my life, I'm just going to be a pharmacist. Great retirement plan, steady job, good hours, and eventually, hopefully, I would get married and find that significant others.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly, I start to realize that I don't fall inside the box. And there's little pieces of hint that shows me
Mm-hmm.
that this is not who you are. Hey, Michelle, it's kind of like a slow wake up call. It's like someone just keeps slapping you with all the obstacles and challenges you have in your life.
Yeah.
And wake up, that's not who you are. Wake up, you have a purpose. Wake up. But then I don't, maybe it's human nature that we keep ignoring those signals that's being sent to us. And we don't feel, we see them as challenges, we see them as obstacles, but yet we don't do anything about it. We're like, oh, it's just one of those bad days.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just one of those bad
Because I
moments.
think it comes back to your B, like it takes bravery to see it and to embrace it. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Or
interrupt.
to
Yeah.
be curious, about, and it goes back to that, when did I start discovering that I need to be authentic to myself? It was after multiple failure, quote unquote failure, I started to realize that this is not who I am. So who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And so I got really curious about who am I, and that was a time where I started to recognize there's something more than just this physical
Right,
body.
right. And I guess let's. I don't want to take too long before jumping into really. I mean, giving our the audience here a sense of where you came from, or the struggles that you've overcome, because I feel like that's very interesting, because you highlight it a lot in. I mean, your book has an immigrant story of making it in America. So you're from Taiwan.
I was born in Taiwan.
Yeah, you grew up
Yep.
there
Mm-hmm.
through you, and then also while you were there, before you even moved to the States, you were hit by a car, and
It,
you had to overcome a lot through that too. So
yeah.
uh,
It was a growing up in Taiwan, it was fun. I was
yeah,
still young. I was so when I got to this country, I was 15.
okay,
And I didn't know a whole lot. So to me, everyday life means that I go out and get to play and see my friends. Being able to play with them, see them. That was what's important to me. Um, After the accident, I started to lose a lot of these things that's important to me. So being able to see my friends, that was something
hmm
that just took it out
and
of
you
my
were, I
life.
think I saw you were 11 when that had happened.
I
Yeah.
was 11 when the accident happened.
hmm
It was, like I said, it was a very ordinary day, just like this one. And I
hmm
went to school, came home. I was waiting for my mom to pick me up. And then what happened was she was running late and I saw her coming from the opposite side of the street. So, of course, my instinct was getting up and just kind of wanted to meet her on the other side so she doesn't have to make a U turn to come around. So I started crossing the street, and when I was in the middle of the street, I heard there's a lot of motion that was going on. I was confused. I heard my friend yelling at me, and I just completely blacked out. The next thing I knew was waking up in a hospital bed, surrounded by all these, the smell. I remember the smell was so distinct. When I wrote the book, I could still smell the hospital smell. And it was always part of my memory. So every time when I was writing the book, specifically when I was writing about the accident, I had to take a lot of time. I actually stopped. I had a timeline for myself when this book would be published. And when I was writing it, at some point I had to stop because the minute I sit down and start typing, I was just crying. It was almost as if I was reliving that moment all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how, as an 11-year-old, what was going? Okay, not to make you relive it again. I'm sure you relive it plenty. With
That's okay.
how? Because I've never been through anything like that before. I'm sure. I mean, there's degrees of that in life, but what? 'Cause I'm trying to establish the mindset. Like, what were you thinking at that time? You can't see your friends. You're in the hospital. Like, how long did it take to kind of accept this new? Like, it's almost like a new you. Like, how? What was that
I don't
like?
think I ever accept that was a change in my life. I still had that mindset of I'm just like everybody. I always wanted to be like everybody. And as an 11-year-old, I didn't feel that was something that's going to impact my life in a very big way. I thought it was just gonna be one of those moments where, oh, I'm sick and eventually I would get better. But that wasn't the case. So I felt I was never accepting the fact that I had an accident, and this accident is gonna lead to something else that I couldn't have seen, and it's going to be so impactful in my life that's gonna lead into something else. So in my head, I was just like in 11 years old. It was, oh, I got hit by a car, and it was something. When you do that to an 11-year-old, it was something that you can be proud of,
Okay.
right? It was something very different from everybody else. So at 11, that's what I thought. I said, oh, I can go to school. I can brag about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So I feel like because you talk about the I don't know, like the pain of, I don't know what kind of rehabilitation that took, or how, I don't know, like what the next stages of that were and how it
Yeah.
affected your life. Like, I'm just kind of curious
So
on that.
from the accident, when the time accident happened to before I came to America,
Yeah.
I spent 4 years doing my recovery in a rehab center in Taiwan. It's a policy that during the recovery period that I would be there by myself. My parents can only come and visit me on the weekend. They'll be able to take me out to places or bring me home to spend the weekend, kind of like a boarding school. So I consider myself living in a boarding school between the age of 11 to 15. And during that time, I had to go to class. They had school at the rehab center, and there's physical therapy. So every morning at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, I would go see my physical therapist, and we would go through all the training and exercise. And they have the swimming pool. That's where I learned how to swim. That's where I learned how to walk again. And it was just slowly recovering by myself during that time. And one of the things that I wrote in the book was it was the it was during the period where I started to become, moving into my womanhood.
Okay.
And one of the incident, as I recall in the book, it was the the day that I start to have my first period. And when I got my period, I was panicking.
Mm-hmm.
My mom already kind of prepped me a little bit of what to expect. And but then when it's very complete different thing when you actually
Sure,
experience it,
sure.
right? Someone can tell you an experience, oh, how good that pumpkin pie is, but then until you taste it, you
Sure.
wouldn't know what it tastes like. So that was me, recognizing my period. There's a body change.
Mm-hmm.
So I call my parents that night, and I was kind of panicking. I said, Mom, what do I do? I don't have any pads here. What do we do? And then so they came, my parents came the next day and brought me to a convenience store, so took care of all that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I believe I was 13 when that happened. And I was still working over that body change as
Mm-hmm.
a woman, young woman. And then this physician, this doctor, came into my room, and he was doing his round, and he came up to my bed, and he's like, "Well, so I heard that you got your period," and I took it as he was kind of shaming me while I was shaming myself
Mm-hmm.
for this change in my body. So I was laying in bed, and I wasn't listening to him. I was just trying to pretend I'm not there. But he knew I was awake and I could
Oh,
hear
I
him.
gotcha. Yeah.
I was just pretending not to hear this. But that shame that I was carrying from that experience, it was so vivid that I had to write it in the book.
Yeah. So was he? What was? What was he saying?
I don't see. So here's the thing about
Yeah.
judgment and all that
Yeah.
judgment that we see and feel every day, right? So it's not about what the person has said; it's about how they said it.
Right.
Yeah. So how he said it, I took it, I interpreted it as a shameful comment. How dare you having your period, or how dare you, look at you.
Well, as if it's in your control, right?
Right, right. And it was not something that a 13-year-old had any control, or any woman had any control.
Yeah. So I guess. All right. Well, I mean, the other thing that I thought maybe we were gonna go with it was it was a form of projection where you were already ashamed about it. So maybe he would maybe in reality he's just stating a fact, and
Yeah.
but then you project it onto him. That you're like why is he bringing like what?
At the moment, I didn't see it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
Now afterwards, going through this journey of understanding that a lot of how we feel, what we listen to, are really our own perception,
mm-hmm.
our way of interpreting what life situation is, that determines how you're going to respond or react. So I took it as something that's shameful, but that was my perception. And what I tell people a lot nowadays is that your response is a complete reflection of your current level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how I responded with shaming myself.
Sure.
Was the perfect response that was the best version of me I could show up in that moment based on my level of consciousness at that time.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And then I don't know where to go with that, but
we can go that into that fear of judgment.
well,
Right?
I was curious to talk about establishing Taiwan a little bit more too, because I was able to read some of the book, and it was mostly the early years of that. 'Cause, okay, you mentioned you moved at 15, and that's I don't know if that's when the rehabilitation you were done, you kind of graduated from the program, or like they're like you're good to go,
Yeah.
and then you just moved. Like I don't know if it timed out or they pulled you out of there because they were ready. Like what was that like?
It was kind of time's up. because during that time my parents were in the process of getting permission to come to United States. So my grandparents had always been here, and
Here in the
here in the
okay.
state. So then at that time, my parents started to think about, they were in their 40s and they're really brave for doing this, like the complete ball move in their
Yeah.
40s. So they were in the process of applying for the immigration already. And by the age of 15, the permission came through, the paperwork came through. And so it was kind of like halfway voluntary, pull me out of the rehab. So I wasn't entirely ready
Mm.
because I was still recovering from a couple of major surgery on my leg. So I had a total of 13 surgeries altogether, and there's scars all over my leg. And I was still recovering from the last major surgery on the hip.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had to go in there and take out all the pins to make sure that I'm pin free or screw free
Yeah.
to send me away. So before they discharged, they wanted to make sure that I am stabilized because I was still growing at that time. I was in my
Mm.
puberty.
Mm-hmm.
And so my doctor gave me a pair of metal brace to wear. And he said, "Here, go wear this because you don't want any permanent damage, and this will go. It's going to support you in your growth." I said, "Okay, great." And they look hideous.
Mm-hmm.
They were not something that I would recommend to anyone of that age to wear. They were hideous and they were
Mm.
chunky, heavy. They weigh about 1 to 2 pounds, and then I have to walk with crutches. I
Mm-hmm.
was walking with both in order to walk right. And so from the outside, I look almost like a person with polio. So when I go out, people would say, "Oh, you got polio." I said, "No, I don't have polio." And I keep defending myself for that fact. So once we got the paperwork coming through, I was 15 and we moved here.
Mm-hmm.
We moved here to the state, and that was basically the another life journey
Right.
altogether
Yeah.
because I never spoke English before in my life. Never.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we're conversing in English, that's
Yeah.
another
Yes.
accomplishment.
Congratulations
Thank
for
you.
sure. Okay. Yeah. Because that's the interesting thing to me is I don't know. I like when okay. So I'm trying to figure out where how you decided to live your life, but because people often see their own situations and it feels overcomable,
Mm-hmm.
and they have much less to overcome than other people. But for whatever reason, our mind likes to push us down the self. What do you the self negative
Negative self-talk
negative self talkers.
or self-doubt.
Yeah. So I just find it interesting. I'm very curious to hear more about where where your own self doubt was coming in and how you overcame it or that kind of stuff. Because I feel like there's plenty of opportunity there where you're in a foreign land, you don't speak the language, you're getting confused as someone with polio, and you're just like anybody else. You're still a growing person trying to figure out who you are
Exactly.
and being comfortable with just your growing body. And there's just so much there that like I don't know how one would cope with that, but
Mm-hmm.
you somehow have.
I think it was
Yeah.
something. It's a long
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
process, right? So things just didn't happen overnight. I didn't wake up and then suddenly I realized, oh, I have this superpower of being who I am and just being in this world. It
Right.
was a slow transition of every moment of reject, every moment of failure, every time I break or fall. It was an opportunity for me to start recognizing, oh, there's so much more than just this body.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the self doubt really become really more evident when I start after my graduate school and when I start interacting more and more with people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an introvert, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I'm a big introvert, so I enjoy spending time alone, and I really enjoy doing things alone. So when I was going through school, I didn't have a large circle of friends. I didn't like going to the party, so I was very reserved
Hmm.
and very quiet, very shy, and completely different than this person.
No, I feel it. I was exactly the same way.
Hmm.
But you probably believe that I'm an introvert, so I don't know. But you go on, go on.
So, um, slowly moving out. So my negative self-talk really was becoming more and more evident when I start talking to people, interacting with people. When I go into the job, when I apply for a position, I need to kind of really selling myself, and I didn't know how to do that. And to me, selling myself means that I am presentable, that I look proper, I dress in certain ways, speak in certain way, and I need to look certain ways.
Hmm.
And my biggest struggle through that journey was some of the obstacles and challenges that we face in our life. We can just shuffle it somewhere, and we can just kind of ignore it. We don't need to look at it, and kind of just avoid it and think
Yeah.
that it doesn't exist. But I can't shuffle this body anywhere. When I look in the mirror, that's all I could see.
Hmm.
It was like putting an obstacle right here in front of you. Deal with it. And it was a constant, everyday reminder of you look ugly. You look ugly.
Hmm.
Look at your legs. It's all crooked. Your hip is bulging. Let's try and hide it. Let's try and cover it so that no one would know. So that self doubt was shaming my body for a long time,
Hmm.
wearing baggy clothes. And luckily, there was a period of baggy clothes that was in trend.
So you still look good.
Yeah, I still look trendy. I was being in the
Yeah.
trendy place.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, but I was trying to cover up my shame.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
was my biggest self doubt. And it's not something that I can put away and pretend that it's not there.
Yeah. That's. I feel like that's the most. Okay. People. That's a weird thing about life, right? It's like we don't choose where we were born, what family we were born into, what body we're given, like our personalities. Even we're just kind of like given this thing, and
How do you change it?
what can you change? There's like certain things that are changeable. Like you could rewire your brain in certain ways to think differently, which is what you do. Is you try to help people with that aspect. But as far as bodies go, it's like you can't just move your brain to a different body here. So that's
Yeah.
it's a process for sure.
And so I slowly to realize that this is the body I need to accept.
Hmm.
And I think we touched a little bit about what I wasn't able to accept, which is that physical body of mine. And what really changed for me was also the physical body of mine. I started to accept
Hmm.
this is the body I'm going to be stuck with for the rest of my life. And what do I want to do about it? And I think acceptance is a great stepping stone to your next level in life, whatever that looks like, right? So, in order to move on to in your life, there's something maybe that's not working right for you. Maybe you don't feel that it's 100% correct, it's imperfect, but by accepting it, you recognize this is something that I can work with. And once you have that mindset, the ball just get rolling.
No, I could I guess to talk about me a little bit here. I feel like uh, that was definitely something that turned a new chapter for me earlier in my 20s. Um, was I used to be the quiet guy that was weird and awkward and kind of like not very like this just that weird energy of just social interactions and stuff, right? And I realized at some point that instead of trying to, I don't know, like I would try with like my friends at the time, like go to the club and try to be like a normal person, like go do things that other people do, and because it seems to be like a normal thing, and it just wasn't feeling right at all. I'm like, I hate it here. I'm not that extroverted guy that just like, I don't know, it wasn't vibing. But there was a point when I was like, instead of trying to not be weird, why don't I just
Blend in.
no? Why don't I just embrace the awkwardness? And well, 'cause that's what I do as a filmmaker. Is like I layer that specific awkward humor or whatever, like just leaning into it versus fighting it versus hiding the fact that it's hard to hide who you are, so just be who you are. But it definitely took a long time for me to get there. But
I actually have a friend who laughed at the most awkward moment. And her philosophy is that, there's so many awkward moments in our life, right? So instead of feeling awkward about it, why not just laugh about it?
Yeah.
So she will laugh at the saddest moment or circumstances in our life, and I will laugh with her. And I think that's the power of having that influence from another person, because it goes back to that connectivity, right? We're all influencing each other, and how we show up will completely change the other person's attitude and their outlook. So why not all laugh about it?
Yeah, no, I enjoy the awkward moments. Like my favorite moments are the accidental humor where I don't know, like when somebody flubs their words and says the wrong thing on accident. Some people get really self-conscious about like, I didn't mean to say that, and like I feel stupid for missing. I'm like, no, that was like super funny.
It's perfect.
That you just like
I'm a very blunt person. So after we came to this country, I grew up in New York. So we first went to New York. I went to school in New York, and in New York, people are very blunt.
Okay, I've never been to New York.
It's very blunt. So basically, we don't waste our time in doing things. And if I have something to say, I would say it. And that was the attitude that I carried from New York to here. So when I first got here, a lot of my colleagues would tell me, Michelle, you can't say that. That's not politically correct. Don't say that. I said, why not? That's what's on my mind. So I'm gonna say it like how I see it.
Yeah.
And that's how I started to become, just being that person, speaking what's on my mind. And sometimes I offend people, but guess what? I didn't come here to be liked. You like me? I came here to make an impact.
To be you.
To be me, to make an impact.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I often enjoy being the person that goes like, I don't know, when everybody's into a certain thing, like for whatever reason, I get enjoyment with giving the opposite opinion, or like, actually I don't like it, I'm sorry, or whatever. But
You're being brave.
yeah, no, I think it's another excuse to separate oneself from the pack too. Like being that I do have like the quieter personality, I have to have other tactics to stand out, where it's like, all right, my opinions help me stand out versus, I don't know. It's just
I think what you touched was it was perfect, because going to the club, what everybody does, right? All people in their 20s and 30s, that's what people enjoy doing. But yet there are few of us who find that we're not interested in going to those clubs. We're not interested in being a big crowd. We'd rather do something else. And that is actually individuality. That is our uniqueness. And there's so many things that I like to do that no one else does.
Yeah, and you're fine with doing them on your own if you need to, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's who I am. I'm not trying to make you like me. I'm not trying to please you, to be somebody. I'm just being me.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, high five to that.
To be you.
Yay!
I was checking to see the book here to see, on the digital version, there was a quote you opened up the book with. I don't know, is it in here?
Yeah.
Where's the quote? Is it this one? There was one that I really liked that shook me. Just gonna,
There's an introduction quote.
did I write it down on my notes? Let me just double check here. Sorry for, I'll edit this out. Alright. Oh yeah, that is a quote. Okay. Do you want to read it, or should I? I'm not the best reader.
You're not a reader?
I mean, I read, but I don't reading out loud. All right. So this is the introduction quote you put in your book, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit and why it's here. But I'll read it. If you're going to try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, maybe even your mind. It could mean not eating for 3 or 4 days. It could mean freezing on a park bench. It could mean jail. It could mean derision. I don't know what that word means. It could mean mockery, isolation. Isolation is the gift. All the others are a test of your endurance, of how much you really want to do it. And you'll do it despite rejection and the worst odds. And it will be better than anything else you can imagine. If you're going to try, go all the way. There is no other feeling like that. You will be alone with the gods, and the nights will flame with fire. You will ride life straight to perfect laughter. It's the only good fight there is. Charles Bukowski, Factotum. So,
I'm a little teary.
So, obviously, it has great meaning for you. For me, when I read that, it's scary. Because, I mean, that's kind of describing what life is and what the purpose of life is. So what do you get why is it here?
It's a very lonely journey.
Mm.
The self-discovery is very lonely journey. You go through a period where you don't find yourself accepted by others, or you believe that you're not accepted by others, and you really stand out. The way that you think may be very different, the way that you look may be very different, and the way that you feel, it feels very alone. And it's almost as if you're in this vast battlefield, and there you are, you're fighting this fight just by yourself, and it scared the shit out of me. It was unpleasant, scary, lonely at times, and sometimes I wake up and I wish that I don't have to fight anymore. That I would get up and this would be all over.
What would be all over?
This life. This life would be all over, so I don't have to keep showing up and fighting. Because every day, it feels like a fight. But there's so much beauty on the other side of that fight that I didn't see. And you have to be brave to stick to it and be curious about what is on the other side. I put that quote in there because it really touches my heart. To get up every day knowing that you might be alone and you're going to lose a lot of people who doesn't resonate with you, who may not share the same beliefs or same ideas with you, but that's okay.
Exactly.
That's okay.
Yeah, isolation is a gift. I mean, that's what I get from it. Is I think about. Obviously, my thoughts go to myself, and I'm trying to. So when I initially read it, I think about my current dreams of being a filmmaker, being a director, and moving to LA in the first place, and how you have to leave your family, you have to like struggle to make ends meet with making rent, and sometimes the goals, like you just have to say goodbye to a lot of things in order to put the time and effort into who you want to be, and and other stuff just falls to the wayside, and it kind of feels bad. And it's like, I don't know, it just
There's a big piece in there. It's about letting go. And sometimes there's a saying that goes, by letting go, we're also letting in. So who are you letting in?
right myself.
Yourself and all
Oh,
those
right.
people,
Yeah.
all those people who's going to see you for who you are.
Right.
And those that we have let go, they didn't just disappear. It's still part of us. By letting go, they becomes part of our history. And so instead of looking at my scars and shaming myself, I started to look at them as, you know what? I have scars because I have history. And the bird is chirping.
Where's the bird?
I think the bird is outside.
Oh, there it is. All right.
The bird likes what we were talking about here.
Yeah. It's feeling it. Great. So, yeah, that's a great quote. It's a great quote. It's a good pick. So I guess just to jump right into talking more about, I want to talk about the book itself, and because I know you talk about it within the book about why you wrote it, what it was like getting started, but I am curious to hear more about why was it important to you? Because you had an idea to just write a book, and you didn't know what it was going to be about. So
Yeah. So I always knew there's a book inside of me. Even before this book.
How'd you know?
It was that, it's one of those things that you just know. Okay. Just like, there's the universe and there's the higher power, right? There people call God, people say Buddha. Whatever it is that higher thing outside of you that you have no control of, but you know. And it was that knowing. And I knew that there's a book inside of me that needs to come out, but I never knew like what kind of book is it, and how am I going to talk about it, and how do I even approach it? What do I want to call it? I don't know. All that I had no idea. I just know there's a book.
Right.
There's a book somewhere. Just like for you, maybe there's a film somewhere. There is a film somewhere.
There's a story.
Yes. So I started. The book came about after I came back from my biggest life trip.
We'll talk about that.
In my biggest trip that I have in my life, it came afterwards. When I came home after that trip, I wanted to do something. I wanted to. I feel there's a story inside of me.
Yeah, you're probably coming off of an insane high of that experience, and you just wanted to keep it going, right?
I operate by inspiration. So there's a moment where I get up and I am spontaneously inspired by something, then I gotta do it.
Yeah.
And I came home, I was coming home with inspiration. And I was looking for ways to bring that inspiration to life. So a couple of things happened. I went into a nonprofit. I devoted myself to a nonprofit organization because I wanted to serve and help others who may be at a disadvantage than I am. And the other thing that I start looking into is I need to tell that story about where I was, and maybe somewhere along that line, that story would inspire someone else who may be going through the same experience as I am.
And what was the nonprofit you were?
So I'm actually this year I step into the secretary of the United Nations Association. We have a chapter here in Pasadena, so I belong to the Pasadena chapter.
Okay.
I'm very actively involved with them. We're a grassroots organization of the United Nations. So we further the mission of the UN. So we do a lot of community awareness and outreach to the community to bring about change in this world.
Okay.
And I can go on and talk more
Sure,
about.
sure.
So now, basically, we are focusing on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This 17 Sustainable Development Goals has been established in 2015, and the deadline is at 2035. So we're actually getting very close to it. And those 17 goals include gender equality, ending poverty, equity, climate change, all these global issues that we see that's creating an impact in all of us in our lives. And by creating awareness and actually getting the community to work together in towards achieving those goals, hopefully by 2035 we would have a complete different outlook in our world.
So is it like they have these smaller community? How many? Are they scattered?
Subgroups.
Yeah, are they all over LA, and you guys all work together to spread the?
Yeah, so we're the grassroots for UN.
Right.
And there's other nonprofit organizations that we collaborate and partner with that who focus on one of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So we recently partnered up with the Alhambra. There's a council in Alhambra, and we were talking about the climate change. So during the pandemic, the air pollution or the quality of air improved dramatically because people were at home.
Yeah.
And it's something that we keep promoting every single time, every single day, that these climate change is real, it's impactful, and we need to do something about it collectively, not just individually. Like you and I, we're recycling the waste bottle. It's not good enough. We need to bring everybody together in this world so that we can actually make a bigger impact. And that would involve industries, that would involve government agencies. Everybody needs to be on the same page. And that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So not one organization can do it all. So the more that we collab and partner with each other, the better we have a chance.
Yeah. I think I just saw an article saying California was phasing out the gas cars sales by like
yesterday. Governor Newsom, I think he made an announcement about the gas electric car. That was I didn't really look into it.
Yeah.
But it came out yesterday.
Yeah. It sounds like exactly one of those things where government is helping push some of those things. So.
You look around, all these changes, all these environmental issues that's impacting us, and believe it or not, these environmental impacts will actually causes our impact on our emotional and mental status, right? So everything is influencing each other, and there's actually 6 different influencers that in our life. So there's social, emotional, environmental, spiritual. There's also social. Did I mention social? I didn't mention social. I'm missing one of them.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So all these will impact our overall well-being. So when we talk about mental or emotional wellness, we can't just neglect these environmental and physical aspects of it. And for me, emotional and mental had a lot to do with my physical influence. It was coming from that physical influence that was causing me having these mental and emotional issues that I had to go through. Yeah. So.
So there's that. I'm trying to see if I want to get sidetracked with more of that, or because I'm curious. I don't know. I'm very curious on what we can do individually to help with
the global issue.
It feels I don't know. I feel like I talk about this all the time, where the world is a big place. There's a lot going on, and everybody, like especially during quarantine, we're just stuck at home trying to just do our best with not spreading the virus. That we're like, what else can we be doing? Because I got time, or like whatever people are thinking. They just want to do something to help. And sometimes I feel like it's hard to pinpoint besides like social media petitions and stuff. Like I don't really know
There's
what
so
to
many things that we can do individually.
yeah what
So a couple of things,
yeah
right? Starting from small, we can recycle, which Californians have been really great in doing. Pasadena is a green city, so they promoted. I believe it was 2010. The city become a green city. Meaning that there's a lot of recycle and there's a lot of trees that they planted. The whole city is being a green city, and they work on that. So individually we can recycle. There's also other things that we can do individually that you may not realize that can create global impact,
yeah tell me.
which include raising our own level of consciousness. So when I'm going out, can I be conscious about bringing my own silverware? That's something that we can all do. Can I be conscious about not using plastic? And actually, you have a perfect example, bringing your own bottle with you. That's something that you act out of consciousness. And during the pandemic, I thought it was a great opportunity for us not to be angry with each other, whether or not to wear a mask. But behind that, there's consciousness that we can awaken to make you realize that by wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, what does it say about who you are?
Right, yeah.
And so those who wear a mask, their consciousness is telling them that I am going to wear a mask not because of myself. I want to protect the well-being of you.
Yeah, that's no, I've definitely seen that, and I feel like it's interesting that it's difficult to convince people to to think that way.
So
But
I think we operate on the level of consciousness, right? So a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of us haven't really reached up to the point where, so everyone travel at a different speed. Like you and I maybe travel a little more advanced.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
I'm hoping.
we're traveling a little more advanced compared to other people. They're not. It's not that we have complete lost hope in them. They are traveling at a different pace, and they need to take their time in focusing on what's most important to them. They're showing up their best self for who they are right now, right? So if they're arguing with you about something, maybe a recycled bottle, maybe they're arguing with you, but they are showing up being the best version they could be. That's who they are
Yeah.
this moment, right? But this moment doesn't project into the future. It doesn't translate to who we can be in the future. So there's always evolution that comes into play in every human being, and I believe that we're human being. We're not human doing.
Nice.
And so as a human being, we're constantly evolving. And what is being evolved? It's that consciousness. It's that thinking beyond this physical world.
Yeah, no, one thing I was thinking about while we are talking about the recycling and stuff is in the film industry, it was we were doing because plastic bottles on set are like the worst thing. Like water for the crew, like people drink half of it,
and they
leave it
toss it.
around, like it's just all over the place. You waste so much. So before a COVID, sets were getting really good about being green. That's why I bought my bottle. They're like, we're not going to have water bottles on set. We're only having the jugs, so bring your own bottle. I was like, all right, I'll buy it finally. But now, because of COVID, because of the safety aspect of the spread, now it's almost reverting back to like, now instead of having like the buffet style lunches and stuff, now they're doing individually wrapped things, and now there's even more garbage than there was before. So I'm like, it's hard to fight multiple battles at once, but it's kind of, but still, the conscientiousness is still there, but it's weird how priorities change depending on...
I believe we need to fight the battle all at the same time, right? Because one influences another. So the fact that we are here with this pandemic, that means something that we didn't do right. Right, the fact that it spread.
Many things,
right?
I'm
Many
sure.
things that we didn't do it right. So by not neglecting what we're doing now, look at the impact that we're gonna leave 10 years from now with all these plastic one-time disposable things. again, it brings back to that being conscious. You know what? I'm gonna bring my bottle. You can give me a plastic bottle, but I'm gonna hold on to that plastic bottle so that I can reuse it again when I go somewhere else.
Right.
Or turn it into like a water. So my mom actually keep these plastic bottle and then she just use them as water in her plants. So there's so many ways that you can recycle in the sense that something was given to you. What do you want to do about it?
Right.
And it's about asking that one individual, what do you want to do about it? And that person may give you a very different answer based on the journey or the place where they are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
I'm still very I'm a very optimistic person.
Okay.
So I still have a lot of hope for humanity. And I believe that more and more people are coming together and talking about topics like this is another thing that we can do individually is we can strike a conversation like this and just be open without judgment. You know, you're free to share your opinion and your perception with me, but at the same time, I would like to use my skills as a coach to get you to see what is possible for us.
Yeah, and I feel like in person. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast in the first place was because um, I don't know. I enjoy the self enlightenment of because conversation really. I don't know. It did, like you said, it does great things, and I feel like there's too much going on social media where you don't really like it's too processed and you're not really having real conversation with people. So I do, in the optimistic view, I do feel like people are more willing to have those conversations if it were in person. But it's weird right now because we're advised to not be in person as much as like stay away. Like there's not as much going on. So um, again, it's a difficult, difficult battle.
To go back to that point, I think it has to do with connection. So what's lacking, American culture is really big on connections. Like we want that relationship, we like that intimate in-person meetings, and being alone, it's very uncomfortable, and a lot of people don't know how to spend time alone. They don't know what to do with themselves. Like you and I were introverts, so we know exactly what to do.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, we're good. But for a lot of people, it's a struggle. They don't know what to do with themselves, so they're constantly looking for something else to do. And social media, it's not. I always encourage people to take a stand back and look at a different way in social media. Social media is something. It's a great invention to connect with people. Now, what it turned into is it depends on our perception or our relationship to the social media. You may perceive it as something that's very bad, something that's harmful, something that's very prejudiced, and something that you should avoid. What if you look at social media as something that you connect with people, understand others, and show your respects for others, and that you can actually create a lot of awareness through that social media by posting your post or writing something with intention, something that's more intentional rather than just blur it out. Here's my opinion. Let it out in the world.
Yeah,
Be more intentional.
Yeah, again, your conscientious approach of just being aware of how it works and using it more as a tool than or whatever, just being aware of what you're doing.
It's our relationship to a lot of different things. Yeah. Like, what is your relationship to social media?
Yeah, because I just watched the Social Dilemma on Netflix. Did you check it out?
I saw the trail. It was something that I wanted to look into because
it's a great doc.
Yeah,
it's great, as in it's very scary.
it's tracking. I definitely know the tracking part. It's tracking your behavior and the way that you're engaging certain posts. And this is something that I share all the time on social media is that if you want to have more positivity in your life, like especially when you feel that there's a lot of drama, negativity in your life, then you want to look at the way that you behave. right? So your circumstances, your
Mm-hmm.
situation will change depending on what you put out, the energy that you put out in the world. So if you want to more positive, engage more positive posts, follow more positive people who can
Mm-hmm.
influence you in a positive way, and that will change your behavior, and that will change the feed that you see on your
Sure,
social
sure.
media. And so you
Yeah.
use it to your advantage rather than your disadvantage, seeing, oh, that person is posting something very opinionated, I don't appreciate these political posts. Well, that's because the way that you were behaving, it attracts those
Mm-hmm.
posts to you. So in a way, Facebook is actually very clever in the way that it's tracking our behavior based on like this whole law of attraction and law of being
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely that's almost just like the surface level of the documentary too, like the levels it goes. Like I
Mm-hmm.
guess one fun fact that I really dug from it was Twitter did a study on itself or something and discovered that fake news travels 6 times faster than the real news that goes on the site. So then if you're thinking about humanity in general, it's like, oh my gosh, how is the truth ever gonna rise to the top when there's 6 times more of the false truth out there circulating than the real truth? Like it's just stuff like that is like
Mm-hmm.
how do you combat that? Like the algorithm is just trying to make the most money for the advertisers and trying to keep you on. So
There's something
uh,
about reading these fake news though. Like the reading the fake news, it excites us,
well,
right? It's something that's
if you know it's fake, some people don't think it's
yeah,
that's the issue.
yeah. And there's a difference between judgment versus discernment. Discernment is that ability to decide,
Mm-hmm.
what is logical, that makes sense, that are facts, versus a judgment has a lot to do with the fear. Is it feeding into the fear? Is it a
Right.
post about
Mm-hmm.
criticizing the other person in a way? And the word that we use is so powerful. It's
Yeah.
it's in on individual level, that negative self-talk. It's the way that we speak to each other. The word that we use has so much power,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't just blur it out.
Right. Right.
Think about, there's a
Yeah.
mind filter where you receive the information, you process it. Is it make sense? Is it true? Is it real? And then you reflect on, you respond rather than react to what you heard.
Mm-hmm.
That's all part of effective communication.
Yes, yes. So speaking of effective communication, your book. um, okay, so you got back from your big trip. You jumped into volunteering at the nonprofit, and you've got this book dream. All right, let's get back into that.
Yeah. So I have this big book dream,
Oh,
and I started to look into, well, I guess what I can talk about and what
mm-hmm.
I know really well, the subject of me.
Right.
I've been me for the last, when I wrote the book, I was 45. I
Mm-hmm.
was 45. So my big transformational journey happened when I was 40, 41. I went to hike Machu Picchu.
Spoilers. I'm
well,
just kidding.
we'll talk a little
Yeah,
more
yeah, we're
later.
good.
Yeah. So the only topic and subject that I know really well and I can talk all day long is about me.
Mm-hmm.
And that me was someone who's very ordinary. I don't consider myself being someone who's, oh, could be making this to TV or making it to the national television one day. I consider myself someone who is very just ordinary. Everyday people,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing special about me. And so when I wrote the book, I kind of felt, well, do I even want to write it? Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that I have a story, and that self talk start to kick in, right? Because then, do you really want to write it? Who's gonna read it? So, but then I finally kind of got over it, and I remember writing this in my intro section. I said, you know what? My purpose is not to make it to the best Amazon um, top author. My purpose was not putting it out there so that I can become someone who's famous. My purpose of writing this book was to get my story out, And whoever needs to read it, they will read it. And whoever can walk away with something in the book, they will walk away with what is meaningful for them. That's why I wrote a book.
Yeah, yeah, because I feel like because you mentioned it a little bit there too, and I could, I guess, highlight it a little bit. Was all right. So you didn't initially think that there was a story there, and you're trying to figure out what kind of message you want to get out into the world. And shucks, I had a train of thought there. I lost it. But I guess okay. Sorry,
Yeah,
it'll come back to me.
so then I decided to approach it from an immigrant perspective because I was an immigrant and coming to this country, and I feel life, you're constantly moving into places. You're an immigrant to a new place that you've never been before. And that new, whether it's a country, it's a place of emotional, foreign place that you never been to, you never tap into, it's scary. And that experience was the same when I physically came to this country, came to the state as an immigrant, and here I am. It was just not. It wasn't just overcoming a physical challenge. It was overcoming a complete change of life. As an immigrant, I know a lot of that injustice, right? I experienced a lot of that discrimination that now we can call it out as discrimination. But back then it was, you knew it, but
It was just the way it was in a way. Yeah, I remember my thought now. So I was gonna say this book in a way was almost an exercise in realizing that your story was worth telling too. Was there like some sort of switch in there where you're like, oh my gosh, there is something here and I do matter? Like that's a whole, because I mean, I understand that feeling because I spend a lot of time on projects that I'm like who's gonna care to watch it? Who like what like who am I to whatever, like all that kind of stuff kind of creeps in too. So I dig that a lot where it's like it forces you to lean into who you are, what makes you you, and that stuff is awesome to me. Like I love. Okay, I'm a big fan of commitment and following through on a dream because a lot of people want to write a book, but like you said, you kind of sometimes you come up with decisions instantaneously. Like you're very what did you say? You said like almost
spontaneous,
like spontaneous,
following the inspiration.
Yeah, because sometimes people when they're hyped up from an awesome trip and they're like, I'm gonna write a book now. Like the follow through is the hard part. Like, yeah. So I'm curious to hear about how long the process was and how if there's like ups and downs and lulls and through that. But regardless, the fact that it's here and it's done and you followed through like that.
I kind of saw my book. I saw my book as a letter of completion. It was a long letter of completion. What I completed was my previous life. And sometimes I call this my previous life because it documented a life journey where I was trying to fit into something that I wasn't. And I am coming to a completion of that. Now I am stepping into a new journey. So this morning, I actually, speaking of spontaneous inspiration, sure. I thought about working on a second book.
Oh, dang. That's cool.
Yeah, so I thought about, I would like to title it Laughing Out Loud.
Oh, you've already got a title.
Yeah, I got a title already. It's called Laughing Out Loud.
How are you with making those kind of commitments? Like okay, for me, I never commit to anything unless I know. Like once I commit, like it's a done deal and it's like it has to happen. Like how are you like that too? Or are you able to be like, this is something I want to do? Like how do you approach it?
When it comes to commitment, there's two approaches. There's one that is fear-based. I'm going to commit, but I'm afraid of what that commitment is going to turn out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other commitment, the other aspect of commitment has to do with your inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
When your commitment comes from an inspiration that you had that pop into you out of nowhere, that tend to be the commitment that's sustainable and that you will stick to it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And there's three things that you're gonna need for a commitment: determination, dedication, and discipline.
3Ds.
3Ds. This is my 3D rules. So I have the ABC rules and I have the 3D
I
rules.
like it.
So determination. Once you decide on something,
Mm-hmm.
you're determined, you're focused, you want to do it. That's your goal. Right? Your determination is typically your goal. Then you have to dedicate yourself in doing it. What is your timeline to set for to do this? So I set a timeline for this book to be 4 months. So I started in April, and I want the book to be out by August. I wrote it on my calendar. Yeah, 4 months.
You were gonna write it and
Publish it
publish it in 4 months.
in 4 months.
Dang.
I wrote it on my calendar, the exact publishing date. It was August 2026 or 29
Okay.
of last year. And I wrote it on my calendar. And here I am. Every single day, I'm going to dedicate myself. So dedication is a process of how you get to your goal. And then lastly is the discipline. Discipline, it's not how hard you push yourself. Discipline
Just showing up.
is showing up and knowing that you can modify, you can change things. If it doesn't work, go to another route. Be more innovative, be able to change, to adapt. That is discipline. Discipline is not you keep pushing forward. Like most people say, oh, you're so disciplined. No, throughout the process, you gotta change, you gotta adapt to what is working, and that is discipline. So discipline. And there are days where I couldn't write. We had touched this earlier, that there are days where I'm so emotionally drained that I can't put down any words. And at the time, I was working with a coach, and he had helped me in terms of going over that emotional aspects of that block. And I would tell him, I said, listen, I haven't been able to write down anything at all this week because like every time I sit down, I start crying. And then sometimes that discipline is allowing yourself to have that permission of, you know what, this week I'm not going to do anything related to the book.
Right.
And by having that permission, it actually help you to get motivated later on. Oh, yeah, now I'm in a good place. Now I can write.
Yeah, no, I get because sometimes overworking is detrimental to the overall big picture process. So I mean, I always think about like my high school days when people would brag about their overnight study, like study all night to prep for the quiz,
All-nighters.
and I'm like, that's not productive. You're not going to retain anything you stayed up, whatever. Like I knew I wasn't capable of it, so I would just sleep.
Yeah.
And just kind of go at
I'm
it.
not an all-nighter either.
Yeah, so it feels like the same thing where it's like a little bit of a, not like overwhelmed, yeah, in a way overwhelmed, so understanding where you need to be for the long haul is, yeah. So
yeah, pushing hard actually doesn't get you to places.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yes. Pushing hard actually is not, it's actually counterintuitive and it's actually not as productive. If you were to just allow yourself and just have a break, and I think this is a area where I become so Americanized because Asian is all about work hard, right? Work hard, enjoy later on, and half of the people can enjoy later on because they either they expire before they actually can enjoy.
That's a nice way of saying that.
Yeah, they expire before they can actually enjoy. So I've started to have this idea of, you know what, you gotta live in the moment. And sometimes living in the moment means what? I'm going to drop everything right now, and it's Friday. I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine. I'm going to enjoy myself. And when I come back to do my work, I'll be more productive.
Yeah. For me, it's ice cream.
Aww.
I do the ice cream. Sugar. Yeah. Okay, so, all right. 4 months. That's very cool. How how? All right. Any? I don't know. How was that? Like how? I'm curious about like the revision process and how you chose to tell the story. Did because like I said, I've only gotten through the beginning bit, like first 20 pages or whatever. So is it just told linearly, or do you jump around, or
It's
how did
told
you?
linearly.
Okay.
And after I wrote the book, because English is not my first language, and I have a lot of grammatical error, so I decided to work with an editor. So I hired an editor to look at my book and structurally, and also just making sure that there's no grammatical error. Although I found a couple of misspelling in there, 2 or 3. It was like my perfectionism jump into play.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
like, oh man, I could have taken that out. So the book is out there, and then I'm gonna have to do a revision on that to make it perfect. Yeah. So I was working with an editor, and she is located in San Francisco, and so we were communicating via email. And she would look at certain paragraph and send it back to me to look at. And like a couple of times, I felt like she was yelling at me over email. And when people put a lot of exclamation point, they will capitalize. So a couple of things that she had pointed out is that I wasn't giving detail, and there was a reason. I think psychologically or mentally, I left out a lot of details because regard to the car accident itself, I don't remember. And she kept asking me, like, Michelle, you got to give more details about how that accident happened and what happened to you and what was it like and that feeling. And that was the time where I had to completely stop because I don't remember. And the stuff that I remember, it was all too painful. So I couldn't describe in detail of exactly where the car was coming from, how did it hit me, exactly where that intersection was, and that much I had left out, and she was screaming at me in the email.
Well, I'm sure. I'm curious to see how you ended up doing it. But there's my creative brain is like, well, there's other ways of just. I mean, there's ways of describing the the lack of remembering. There's a way of narratively weaving that in and putting us in your perspective. So I'm curious to see.
That's what I. I did it a filmmaker way.
Yeah, you leaned into your yeah. Yeah.
And then there's other things that she was screaming at me was that there's a lot of like it's structured as a linear storytelling. So I go from when I was born in a military veteran village, and all the way till up until the point where I started my own company. So it was told in such a way that it's a timeline of my life.
I thought for a second there you were going to say it goes up until the point when you start writing the book, and then.
A little bit. I didn't really go into the process of describing. I think that's in my second book.
Yeah.
That will be in my second book. In my second book, I also wanted to talk about really more detail about that journey to Machu Picchu. There's so much elements I can bring, and it's perfect for llama and laughing out loud. Perfect. Nice. My creative mind start thinking.
Yeah. So let's jump into that. Because you said before the book, you tell us Machu Picchu. I've never been. It's Peru. In
Cusco.
Okay.
And so it's a Spanish-speaking country. I don't speak Spanish. I decided so it was towards the end of my personal self-discovery journey, where I started to recognize and knowing that this is not the life I want to live. I want to do something different. And that something different requires me to accept my physical appearance, and that requires me to really look into what can I do with this body. And I was curious about challenging myself. Physically.
Yeah.
So I'm physically challenged. I want to challenge that physical challenge. And so I decided I'm never stepping a foot into a gym. Never been there. Pass by it all the time. I see people running on the treadmill all the time, but I couldn't be part of that. I felt like an outsider. So I decided, okay, so I'm gonna go to the gym and see what I can do there. maybe they have equipment, maybe there's something I can do. I used to swim, so I still know how to swim. So the only thing that I use in the gym is swimming pool. So I want to try something different. So I went in and I decided to work with a personal trainer. And I said, listen, I need you to start working with me. I don't know what you can do for me, but
let's figure it out. Yeah.
yeah, let's figure it out. And I'm open to whatever that you have to suggest. So we start working, and at that time my friends were talking about they were coming back from Peru, and they were talking about how beautiful it is out in the mountain, and they all enjoy hiking. It was during the time where everybody is getting their backpack on and going to hike, so I wanted to be part of that conversation. So I told my personal trainer, I said, listen, my friends all went to hiking, I want to go hike. He's like, oh great, let's go hike. Is it here, like Mount Wilson? No.
At first, I'm just kidding.
I thought about Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
So I said, no, I want to go to Machu Picchu. And he said, where? Machu Picchu? Oh, we need to a lot of work on that.
Yeah,
I said, great.
How did you pick Machu Picchu?
So in 2010, I went to China with my family. I was born in Taiwan, but I went to China because my parents originally came from China. So they went to China with the military back in the Chinese civilization world. And then, so I went up to visit Great Wall. And I didn't just go up to the Great Wall where there's escalator that take you up. I actually went to a place where it's very ruined. It's not fixed yet. So a lot of it has to do with your own physical body to travel up there to see the Great Wall. So I did that, and that was like a little hill, little tiny steps, that got me there. And that was one of the seven wonder of the world, or the seven ancient wonder of the world.
Okay.
So Great Wall was checked off. And then I came home, I was doing a research on what are other seven wonders of the world. And I found Machu Picchu was one, Egypt, and then there's in Mexico, there's Chichen Itza. I think that's what it is called. There's an ancient temple in Mexico. And then there's also Angkor Wat, which is in Cambodia. So I saw Machu Picchu, and my friend all came back from Machu Picchu. Okay. So I decided, you know what? That feels right for me to check off next. Yeah, so that's how I decided that I wanted to go to Machu Picchu, which is a little sidetrack here. The following year, after Machu Picchu, I went to Cambodia. I went to Angkor Wat.
Okay.
And so I got 3 checked off out of 7.
Yeah.
So I got a couple more to go.
So that's an official bucket list item, is to see all. Okay. Very cool.
Yep. So I said I wanted to go to Machu Picchu. He said, great, we need to start working on that. So every single day I would show up to the gym every single day. And this is where that 3D rule comes in play: determination, dedication, and discipline. So every day I would show up, and he and I will work together. And that year in 2016, I booked myself a ticket, flew myself along by myself to Machu Picchu. I started with the baby steps.
Yeah.
So my baby step was just going up to the Mount Wilson here.
Okay. Yeah. So you worked your way up. You didn't. Yeah.
I didn't just go jump the plane.
No, I figured as much. Yeah.
So the first time I went hike, never hiked before. The first time I went hike, I hiked by myself, and I didn't tell anybody. And that is something about me that I just spontaneously wake up to, and I would just go do it without telling anyone. So my parents, they didn't know that I was gonna go out that day, wake up early in the morning, and just go hike in the mountain here. And what scared me actually the most when I came back was I was looking down to the cliff, and then I realized, holy macaroni, I could drop there and no one would know about it.
Yeah. They're like, where is she?
Yeah, no one would know about it. And that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And then so I came home, and following that, I kind of, every time I go out to hike or planning to hike, I would tell someone in my family, hey, I'm going to hike this weekend.
Yeah, you post it on Twitter or something.
And yeah, I take a snapshot, a selfie, and post it on my Facebook.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So now you got on the plane. You're about to tackle Machu Picchu. For those that aren't familiar, like I did a quick Google search on Machu Picchu to confirm like the hike and stuff, and I think it's typically I don't know if you did the full venture.
yeah,
It's like multiple day, multiple night,
4 days.
8,000 feet elevation,
So the highest point in Machu Picchu is 14,000 feet.
14,000.
Yeah, so it's a 4 day hike. The trail, there's several trails that lead to the ruin of Machu Picchu, the actual site. So there's different trail that you can travel. The trail that I picked was called Inca Trail.
Okay.
So a lot of people, they will know that it's Inca Trail. And Inca Trail start from kilometer 82. That's the location, that's the name of the location where the trail has begun. So we started at kilometer 82, and you travel every day, and you hike about 8 hours typically, 8 to 10 hours typically, to get to the next campsite. And there's multiple campsites in the mountain, and that allows traveler to take a rest and follow up the next day. So the highest point was on the second day. It's called the Dead Women's Pass. And once you get over that pass, then you start to descend. That elevation was 14,000 feet, the highest one. Yeah. So there's a little story before I start the trailhead, because I wanted to acclimate myself, because Cusco has elevation of 8,000 feet. So it's a higher altitude, and most people would go there just to acclimate to that high altitude. High altitude, you run into that high altitude syndrome, where you start having shortness of breath, and your body tend to swollen up, and you have a lot of GI, gastrointestinal effects or side effects. And so I decided I was gonna acclimate myself into that environment. So I booked the ticket and went there 5 days before the actual start of the trip. Went to Cusco, walked around, really enjoyed the town. It's a beautiful place to be, and I'm sure you would enjoy it.
I'm sure. There's plenty of places I gotta go.
It's a beautiful place, and I highly recommend it. So it's not a really big town, so you can travel from one end to another within a day. So that 5 day, I basically just walk around by myself, going to different places, and then I love their ceviche. Ceviche, and they're great. They're so delicious. And I ate a couple of those delegates, the guinea pig, alpaca.
The local cuisine.
Yes, very. They're great, and of course I end up having food poisoning.
Oh, okay.
So 2 days before my actual hike, I was checked into the hospital, to the infirmary there, and they were giving me antibiotic and IV fluid. So on the day of the trail, I was just recovering from that.
Of course.
Body was swollen. I had a lot of difficulty in breathing. So all my picture afterwards, now I went back and looked, I was all swollen.
Yeah. It sounds like as far as a narrative goes, it sounds very much like it's definitely something you'd want your hero to have to go through to overcome their big goals. You don't want to send them into their final battle with like 100% strength. It's like you got to send them in with some adversity. Otherwise, it's not as
It's
cool.
boring. Otherwise, it's boring. Exactly. Life is boring without those challenges.
Yeah.
So my body was all swollen, and when I went there, I kind of prepared myself, because I know I'm different. Physically, I'm different. So I spoke to my sister. She's like, well, you better take care of yourself, and you might die up there and no one would know. I said, yeah, okay, I got it. And I bought myself helicopter insurance just in case I drop dead and they need to helicopter me out. So I did that. And I also hired a tour guide to walk with me one-on-one just in case I need something. So we start walking, and that first day, we had porters. So along the trail, there's porters who carry all these equipments for us, and they're the one who's setting up the campsite and cooking for us. And then there's also donkeys along the trail that carries supplies. The donkey can only reach to certain points. After the first day, they start going backwards. So the donkey can pass the first day. So I was following the whole tour. So we have about 8 to 10 people traveling from all over the world. Most of them came from Australia that I was able to meet with them, and we were on the same group. So I was traveling with a group.
Yeah.
These strangers that I've never met in my life. That was not something very comfortable to to be focusing on for an introvert. But I wasn't. My mind was just so busy focusing on the hike.
Yeah.
So the first day we start walking, and it was all upward trend. It was all climbing. I was walking very slow. My crutches on the side, it was plastic. So one of the tour leader I had worked with, he wrapped the crutches with some Band-Aid, just so that it's not rubbing against my arm. So I was walking, and it was every step was a struggle because I was still trying to catch up my breath. And luckily, I didn't have to use the oxygen. Most people, if you're so shortness of breath, you might need to end up using the oxygen. I didn't get to that point, but I was just having to make multiple stops and catching my breath.
Yeah.
And every step, it was a push-up. So instead of just walking like people, every step it was a push-up. So I had to use 2 crutches, just as if someone is using hiking poles. So I was using 2 crutches because it was long distance, and I was gonna end up using a lot of pressure on my back. So to avoid an injury, I decided to use both crutches. That it would help me to balance out my body. So I was using both crutches, and a lot of places, it's not paved road. So it's rocks, and it's really hard to land those crutches on the rocks. They slide, and I was using a lot of upper body weights and just keep going. That night, when we got to our first campsite after dinner, the tour leader sat me down, and he goes, "Michelle, we need to talk." He said, this is from here on, this is the point of no return. Like right now, you can change your decision, you can go back, and I will have someone escort you back. But after this, you either make it or you don't. And when you don't, I don't have anyone to carry you. And if you think about how you travel today, and he was comparing me to the donkey. He said, "You were traveling slower than the donkey. What are you gonna do?" And I sat there. I remember I was listening to this, and I got really emotional. And I said, "I know I'm slow, but I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna go.
You're gonna commit, yeah.
I'm gonna go." I wasn't, and I was hoping that he wouldn't say that to me. I was hoping that it was, "Yeah, Michelle, you got this. Don't worry about it." It was almost like you go to a place and suddenly someone just drop a fact to you, and you really have to look at it like how you want to choose. And it was an option of going back or moving forward. How do you want to choose? And so it was without a doubt. It was without a doubt that I chose to go forward.
Yeah.
My internal message was, "Oh, please, 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 don't tell me to go back. Please, don't tell me to go back." And I didn't come this far for you to come and tell me to go back. And I know how challenging it was, and I can't imagine what the following 3 days was going to be like. All I remember was my arm was already sore, and I was mentally worrying about how am I gonna go through the next 3 days. That's all on my mind. There's no negative self-talk. It was more about how am I gonna go through. And then I think what worked really well for me that day was, it's not some it my past life, it's not something that I wanted to go back to. And there is no going back anymore. There is no going back. It's not an option. So I don't have any choice.
Yeah. No, it feels like that. It feels right to be asked that question at the end of day one. Like it feels necessary, so that way you know that you are making that decision to not go. Like it feels like if that didn't happen and they're just like, let's go, then it's just
Yeah,
again.
it's that hero's journey, right?
Yeah, it it, it plays it feels like it works really well, and it feels like for them it's something that they wouldn't feel right not saying either. It's like
And they say that to all the people who are traveling slow. So not just to
yeah,
me.
yeah.
So anyone within the group who's traveling super slow on that first day, it's kind of their way of evaluating
sure.
whether or not this is going to be an easy trip for that person.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you're paying them to kind of oversee your safety to get to Machu Picchu. So they wanted to make sure their clients, their customers are really happy and that they can enjoy this trip. So it's their responsibility to kind of, ask the person who is the slowest, how do you want to go about doing this?
Yeah.
So then at the end of that conversation, he suggested that, Michelle, in order for you to catch up with the rest of the group because you're traveling slower, what I would recommend is you get up early in the morning and just get a head start.
Yeah.
So typically, people start the trail at 7 o'clock from the campsite. And so what I end up doing was I start hiking 5 o'clock in the morning before
2 hours.
the 2 hours ahead, and I just barely made it to the next campsite with them. So that just kind of show you how slow I was.
Yeah.
So 2 hour ahead of everybody else, and it was all dark. And there's something about darkness. There's beauty behind darkness.
Yeah.
And that beauty is that you may not see where you're going when you're in the dark.
Getting metaphorical here.
But when you don't see things in the dark, you have nothing to be afraid of because you don't know what is ahead of you. In order to be afraid, you have to know that you're afraid. But if you don't know what to be afraid of, what do you have to be afraid?
Okay, I like that. I like that positive flip, because a negative self-talker would say it's like the fear of the unknown would be the negative flip of it. Like, yeah, but
The unknown is not to be feared.
people, yeah,
The unknown is not to be feared. What is fearful is what we anticipate behind that unknown. Right? Unknown itself is just unknown.
Right.
What we anticipate with that unknown, that is the story that we tell ourselves. And that is what you're afraid of. It's that anticipation. You're afraid of that anticipation. You're not afraid of that unknown.
Right. Yeah.
It's very philosophical.
Yeah, no, I like it. Yeah, it's not the actual thing, it's the thing, the thoughts of the thing that, put eloquently by me there. But all right, so you were doing your 2 hours, your 2 hour head start. You're getting your days done.
It usually takes 8 to 10 hours. So 10 hours for me altogether. For that days of hike.
Yeah.
So I did that for the following 3 days. It's a total of 4 days trail. So every day I would get up and travel. And like I said, up until second day, it's all upward trend. It's all climbing. It's all pushing up. And the way that some of the stairs, I'm really short. My legs are shorter. And some of the stairs are really tall. They're the same length of my leg. So I can't just raise my feet and just climb over it. I actually have to put my crutches down on the steps, get down to my hands and knees, climb up the stairs, and then just repeat that through the whole process. So some days, I could easily climb for the next 2-3 hours just doing that until I get to the next kind of like a resting point.
Yeah, because I believe you have. I think I checked out a YouTube video where you were doing that climb, and I was like, dang.
That was the last day. So the last day was at the Sun Gate. It's a very last 50 steps, and they call the Peruvian call these 50 steps, the last 50 steps, as oh my god steps, OMG steps.
The OMG stuff.
Yeah, because when you look up, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Oh, okay.
And
50,
you're
like 50
really,
giant steps.
it's 50 very steep giant steps, and they're very narrow. They're about, really about this much.
Okay.
So it's hard to land your feet, let alone my crutches. So
Yeah.
there's no place to really land my crutches securely. I couldn't do what I used to do, putting my crutch to the next one and just climb up and pick up my crutch and follow that. So I was looking at the oh my god steps, and I was thinking, how did I get here? How did I get here? Oh, holy macaroni! And how do I gonna finish this last 50 steps? Because we were on a mission of looking at the sunlight at the sun gate when it comes out, and it was already like 9 o'clock, so I already missed the sunrise that people are dying and enthusiastic to see about. So all I could focus on, okay, last 50 steps, I'm just gonna get over it, get to the Machu Picchu site and be done with it, check it off. So I look at my tour leader, I said, here, I gave him my 2 crutches, I said, here, take these and go up there and meet me. So I gave him my 2 crutches, gave him my backpack, and he went up there to meet me. And then I got down to my knees and hand, and I start crawl. And I remember I was joking, and this is the part where you laugh about your awkward moment. And halfway at the stairs, I was so hungry. And they were like, Michelle, you want to do this again? I said, sure, I will do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so and then I asked, I said, can I get 2 hamburgers for today, please? And it was 4 days with just eating Peruvian traditional food.
Yeah.
So I was really, really missing that taste of hamburger, a juicy hamburger. So by the time I finished that trip, I rewarded myself with a fat, juicy hamburger.
Nice. It sounds poetic. Yeah.
And I think it's really important for people to realize that, there are so many things that you accomplish in life, but take a moment to celebrate. And we don't celebrate ourselves enough. We keep pushing and going to the next thing and looking for the next success. But, how often do we stop and say, well, you know what? I did something amazing. Let's celebrate here. Yeah.
Yeah, celebrating. It's tough. It's not, yeah. So, I don't know. It's hard to, okay, for instance, for me, I'm trying to go through that right now, too, as I just finished a 20-month process on making my first feature film. And being that there's no, I feel like the natural celebration to making a movie is you have like a premiere, you have all your friends there, you have like the Q&A where you talk about it. But now because of like COVID, that's not happening. So I'm just like, how do I get that out of my system and celebrate? Because it's like, for me, it's huge. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did the thing that nobody said I could do, whatever. Like, I don't even know if I could pull it off or like whatever the thing was. But
you should have a virtual party. This is you should invite all your friends and just come
It's just not as good. It's just not as good. Like I said, I mean, like what we're talking about, being the in-person communication, feeling the energy of the room, of them, like, that's the whole thing. When you're virtual, like I'm watching the screen,
we get a box.
and I know other people are there. Like it's just like, are people like, you don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, celebration. Yeah, I don't know.
You need to celebrate. I'm celebrating you.
Yes. Yeah,
congratulations.
No, I've definitely taken time to reflect and do my own
celebration.
Like I'm trying. Like I think I'm celebrating. Like I have those moments where I'm trying.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's still something missing there. But I'll find it. But there's time. But okay, your celebration of Machu Picchu is what we're talking about. All right, so you did it. How does it? Is it like a? Okay, my question is, it's 4 days to get, and you get up those steps, the OMG steps. How do you get back from that? Like, you don't. Is there like a short way? How does
Yeah,
that
there's
work?
a short way back. So there's actually a short way up. There's a short way back. So
Okay.
there's two options that you can actually visit Machu
Oh,
Picchu.
that's what you said. This the
Yeah.
Inca Trail was the
So
one you
Inca
said.
Trail is one, and then the other way, the easier route. A lot of elderly people that I
Mm.
know, they went the easier route, which is taking the train. So they took the train.
Oh.
It takes you to a small town right down by Machu Picchu, and you go onto a bus, and the bus will take you up to the ruin site and
Okay.
Machu Picchu actual
Okay,
site.
that makes
So
sense.
that's the easier route. I went with the
Yeah,
harder
yeah, yeah.
route,
You
so
needed.
Inca Trail.
Yeah, it wouldn't
Yeah.
have
And
meant
I
anything.
and I was traveling to prove to myself.
Yeah.
That was the idea or the motivation that I wanted to do, is to prove to myself that I'm capable of doing this. So coming down, we did the bus, we did the train. So coming down was easier. After I get my hamburger.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So
Well, yeah. I actually let's pause there really quick. I still want to focus on how it felt when you reached the top. Like what, yeah. What?
I was crying. I was crying. It was really emotional. So the highest point was the second day.
Hmm.
And the second day, I was just completely physically drained
Yeah.
because I used all that strength to get up there. And when I was at the last 100 feet, I kept asking my tour guide, I said, how much longer? How much longer? Because that's how much my hand was hurting. He said 200 feet, 200 feet, and every moment he tell me it's like 200 feet. He's been telling me 200 feet for the longest time. And so finally I was at the last 100 feet, and I could see people on the top, and they were all gathered together taking picture. And the minute I got closer to them, I start breaking down in tears.
Hmm.
And I remember calling out, I said, I made it. And then I was just crying.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then I said, we made it. I said, we made it because I couldn't have done it without all the people who were on that trail.
Hmm. Hmm.
Every
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
every time they passed me, they gave me a thumbs up.
Hmm. Hmm.
Every time they turned, they were clapping, they stopped. I couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah, because you said initially there was a little bit of the introvertedness where you're like, who are these people? But I'm sure by the end they're like family.
They are,
Yeah.
and I still in close contact with them.
Hmm.
And some of them got married, and some of them had kids. They're
Yeah.
so I still follow them. This is one thing about Facebook that I really enjoy. Social media I really enjoy. I follow them and through their life journeys.
Hmm.
Yeah,
No, that's
they're
awesome.
family.
That's awesome. It gets me right here. No, I buy it 100%. Like back in college, like I don't like, okay, I like the running club, so I enjoyed the camaraderie aspect of like, yeah, the cheering people. Like people, it does so much for people to know that you're rooting for each other. And I'm just like, oh, because yeah, that keeps people, that gives people energy and gets them to burst. So it's nice that you had that and that they were rooting for you.
And so it turns out that connection is really one of my biggest value in life,
Hmm.
because I don't believe that we can function as individual in this world. We need each other.
Hmm.
We need each other. We need to be there to support each other. And even in the darkest moment or the most dramatic and negative things, or that people, another person is bringing into your life, you're learning something very valuable from that person. Like all these negativity, all these drama people are creating in your life, it's teaching you something about you, about who you are. And it goes back to that authenticity of discovering who you are because of that interaction. So all these rejects from my relationship, it was lessons that I need to learn about who I am. it's never about them. It's not about them not liking me or not wanting to be with me. It's about me, what I like, and who I am. It's never about the other person.
Yeah,
Never.
that's I believe you. Yeah, no, that's the thing that we all, I don't know how long it, getting that through people's heads and realizing that's life, is it's all our perception of interpretation and how we accept things and how we approach things, and everything's in our control and we can do what we want to do and we can set goals and accomplish them. Like, it's, I mean, I mean, we can jump into that next too. I wanted to hear more about how you utilize your experiences to motivate people to kind of get past their own hurdles and their own barriers that they put in front of them, because I know plenty of negative self-talkers that I try to, you know, as friends, you often like to listen to people, and they ask for advice and stuff, and you try to just be there to help them feel better. And it is hard to watch people negative self-talk and be like, wait, why are you seeing it in that way? Like, there's lots of potential here. If you just flip the way you saw it, you could, yeah, instead of feeling, you know, like having to take a little detour on your dream to like go take a part-time job to help pay off some stuff to just get that weight off of you. It's a
It's
big
like
it's a big
you
picture.
want to shake them and say, "Hey, wake up and listen. There's another way of living your life." Right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, no, this is a good thing. You're doing great. This is a great step toward the big goal. Like,
Yeah.
don't, like,
But people don't see it because timing is a big thing in our lives. So we don't start doing something or we don't begin to change until we reach to a point where timing is perfect. This is the right time to change. You reach to a point. So for me, I reached to a point where I don't want to live this life like this anymore. I don't want to wake up in the morning and feeling sorry for myself,
right.
right? So the timing was perfect for me to look into changing, challenging my physical challenge. And same thing with another person. There's a motive, there's a motivation that you want to change. And it's not just about creating a change, it's what do you believe is going to happen if you make that change? What could that change bring you? And it goes to the reason why. And I think Simon Sinek had a perfect topic. He had a TED talk on why. Everybody has a why. And in order to live a successful and meaningful life, you really have to ask yourself that question, why? It all starts with the why. Like, why are we here? Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Why are you passionate about filmmaking? Why am I passionate about speaking or coaching? Right? There's a reason why. The why will bring our curiosity. It will light up our curiosity in wanting to know what can this bring for me or for others. And that trip to Machu Picchu was a starting point or a process where I began to ask the question why. Like, why am I here? What is my purpose? If this is the body I'm stuck with, why am I here? And then my answer when I came home was that I am here to serve. I believe we're all here to serve. Like the way that you are serving is through filmmaking. The way that I am serving is by sharing my story. And we all are here to serve. How do you want to serve? That is something that you work through on your journey with the hero that's inside of you. And with all these challenges, they're helping you, that hero inside, to wake up to your purpose. That is why.
Right. I mean,
There's so many things in there.
No, for sure. That's the biggest thing that I observe myself too in others, is often when people are having issues figuring out or like there's these frustrations in their life. It usually stems from the base fact of they don't know what they want. Therefore, there's all this kind of unhappiness that swirls out from that. And I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be one of my questions actually. I wrote it down here. As far as I guess the question is, what do people need that they don't know they need, or like what are some common things that you're noticing that people just aren't doing that if they were like I don't know. It's okay. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. You probably know where to take it.
People, what I believe people need is people need to start become vulnerable.
Mm. Mm.
Vulnerability, yeah.
That's so tough.
Vulnerability is very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the most uncomfortable things for a lot of people because being vulnerable means that you really just have to show up being you, and you have to tell people about who you are. And there's no mask.
Yeah.
There's no, you can't put up a mask. You can't put up this wall, and people really have to get to know you, and that's uncomfortable.
What kind of what is the best way of approaching vulnerability? Like how does one present, like how does that, because I mean I feel like I know how to be vulnerable. Well, because yeah, I mean it makes it difficult because once you're critiqued, it's not now like I had the courage to present myself and I got shot down, and it just hurts even more than getting shot down with a wall up. So it's like
I believe in order to get to vulnerability, it's you have to learn how to be free of judgments. Judgment not just against another person or what that person has to say, but judgment about what you're going to say or share with that person. A lot of time we have this wall, and I know this for a fact because I used to create these walls. I have this wall in front of me with people because I don't want them to know that I was dealing with a lot of emotional, and that I was shaming at myself. I was looking down on myself. I was judging myself for being who I was. And when you have judgment, the minute that you step into a conversation, you're going to create or say things that to protect yourself from being harmed. And our experience, our life experience, we look back, everything is from the experience. How do we know hurt? Because we have been hurt before. And so in order to prevent ourselves from being hurt again, we can tell people how we really feel. We don't want to share that feelings because we know by putting it out on the table, I can control all my own feeling, but I can't control how you're going to handle my feeling, right? So that is a judgment itself because I'm judging you for, I don't believe that he can really handle my feelings, right? That's a judgment in itself. So by freeing our judgment and just let go, just here's my feeling. I don't have control of how you're going to react or respond to it, but that's okay because here I am. I'm an open book.
Yeah.
I want you to see them.
I think I like what you say there because I feel like it does, people stress a lot about they worry about the reactions a lot. People worry about stuff that's not in their control a lot in general. So that's usually when people ask me sometimes on my approaches on stuff, I'm like, well, I kind of try to boil it down to what decisions I can make to affect the situation or what's in my control on how I react. Because let's say producing a film is stressful work, and there's a lot of things you got to balance and coordinate. But if you boil it down, it's like, all right, well, I'm just communicating with individuals on a place to meet, and here's a script, or whatever. It's like a step-by-step process on if you just I don't know, boiling
and
it
you're
down
not worrying about to be liked,
right,
and you're not worrying about pleasing someone else, right? So if I'm presenting my feeling and the other person doesn't take it well, that's just, he doesn't take it well. That's all there is. He doesn't take it well. He doesn't resonate with it. He's not my people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's billions of other people who might be able to resonate with the message that you're sharing or the feelings that you have. You just going through your life,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing your life, in meeting that person who can resonate with that message. And that's all there is to it without any story and period.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
need to start using period rather than, comma. More story to
Just
come.
it's
Or
like
to be continued.
it's like it's the simplicity of like that. It's simple as that. Like that's the
Yep.
situation.
Yep. No anticipation whatsoever.
So jumping from that, I did want to talk a little bit about the title of your book,
Mm-hmm.
because you do have some. I know you have opinions on what normal means, and
I had to argue with my editor about that.
okay,
So initially, I wanted to call. Actually, this is really ironic because I feel laughing out loud is still. It was the original idea of I was gonna put that as the title, laughing out loud, because I felt
oh,
that was
laughing
who
up.
I am.
Okay, so now you're saving that for part
I'm
two.
saving that for part two. So we end up landing on perfectly normal because throughout the book I use the normal a lot. I use the word normal,
Mm-hmm.
and then this is another part that my editor was yelling at me. She goes, Michelle, if you want people to buy your book off the shelf, you can't use that word because normal is very controversial.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's normal for you is not normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just throw it out like that, and your reader will not appreciate it. And then that night I was having a struggle, and I actually had to coach myself around it. I said, well, yeah, maybe she's right. I shouldn't be using normal, and that can be very offensive. But then I was thinking,
Offensive.
yeah, yeah, because normal, like, oh, you're not normal. That's
Oh, right,
pretty
right,
offensive,
yeah.
right?
Well, or
However,
even sometimes you are normal. It's like, wait, I thought I was different. Yeah,
right? Yeah, so it's very controversial. And so I thought, well, like all my life, I wanted to be normal. And I kind of went into a little bit of how I
yeah.
define normal in the
Mm-hmm.
book. And the way I see normal is there's a belief and there's a really descriptive way of how we look, act, and behave in this world. It's kind of like a package that was
Mm-hmm.
designed for you, and you have to fit into that package in order to consider to be acceptable, be socially acceptable, be considered as normal
Mm-hmm.
in the society.
Yeah, blending in. Yeah.
But if you don't, then you're abnormal. So for me, for my longest time in my life, I want to be normal. I want to fit into that package.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And perfect is just another way of saying being normal. If we can be normal, if I can be normal, that would be perfect. Is that perfect?
Right.
So perfectly normal. Wow. Yeah. Can we be perfectly normal? So I landed on that title, Perfectly Normal, because I feel that's who I was trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
I try to live up to that reputation of being normal or being perfect.
Yeah. Because I guess what you're saying too, because I've included it in plenty of scripts as well, is the idea of there's a lot of issues that stem from wanting what you are not, right? That's kind of the issue with normal, is like I don't feel normal. Everybody seems to have everything figured out. Why did like everybody around me know what's going on, but I don't? There's something wrong with me. I want to be normal like them. And if you think, I mean, everybody's in the same position where they don't know what they're doing, and they're having the same self doubts as you. Um, yeah, so it feels like normal kind of is just like a bad word almost. Like it's like in term like it's used. It's
We use it in a very has a negative connotation to it. But one thing that I think I talked about it at the end of the book is that every words that you use matters, and all the interpretation of how you give meaning to that word also matters. So normal is really just normal. There's nothing special about normal,
right, right.
right? There's nothing abnormal about being abnormal or being unique.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of values in being unique, but we'll go into that. So normal is just a word. Normal is just the word.
Okay.
It's just a word that how we defined it. It's what makes a difference, right? So how I defined it was that beauty that we all see on the film, on the magazine, that beautiful picture of who I want to be, that beautiful house or beautiful life that we can have. That was normal. But then if you look at it from the perspective of, you know what? It is quite normal for you and I to feel that we don't belong on this earth because we're unique. Right? Because you and I share the same feeling about, well, there's time where I feel abnormal because I feel like I, I really enjoy being myself, and that is not normal. And that's perfectly normal.
Yeah, but the other way to spiral that too is like the way to almost the more not normal you are, the better you fit in. Like it's almost like just being yourself makes others accept you better, and then you become a thing. You become the part of the normal by not being normal. So
Yes, yes.
it's
You become, it's actually normal for not being normal.
there you go.
Yep.
Which is
It's
confusing.
normal. It's completely, perfectly normal for not being normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the book, that was a long completion, letter of completion. What I now emphasize is that you don't have to be normal. You can actually be extraordinary. And are you brave enough to step into your extraordinary?
That's the next level, right? Is that So speaking of which, let me see it. All right, cool. We got plenty. What I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned wanting to write another book, and being that you've recently come into a new chapter, what how what's the latest dream? What do you now that you've tapped into what you can bring to the world? What are you aiming for?
I'm aiming for, so I have this mission, I have this dream, and it's a big dream. I know I'm working towards that, just by the fact that the people I meet. So, my ultimate dream, even before I started this whole company and coaching and seminar and speaking, is that I want to serve the people in the refugee camp. And where that refugee camp is, it's going to be in the Middle East, it's going to be in Ginza. And why do I want that? It was because I remember watching a film. I can't remember. This is going back to the film. I remember watching a film. It was a documentary about the people or the children who are being affected by war. And we don't realize that all these conflict that's going on around the world, what is really leading to is the children, our following generation and the generation after that, was stripping their right to have education. Like, we are fortunate group because we got to education. We know something. We wake up to our consciousness because we had that knowledge. We're able to go through this life journey. But all these children could face is that instability, right? They used to have a roof over their house. They're no longer there. They can't even go to school. And so my dream before I started all this was I want to open a nonprofit school to benefit those children in the refugee camp. I want to give them the education. And how do you serve others so that they can serve themselves? There's a analogy, right, about the fisherman,
Right. I was thinking that.
How do you show someone, you give the fisherman the skills to fish so that that fisherman can fish themselves, right?
Yeah.
So same thing, same idea applied to the children. You got to give them the knowledge so that they can rebuild their country And that's how we stop the whole issue on the refugee and the migration and people being displaced. That's how we resolve the issue. We don't resolve the issue by creating walls and building more weapons and having more crimes and more conflict. We build it by giving them the opportunity that they deserve as human beings. And so that is my dream. And along this journey, I've been meeting people, filmmakers. I've been meeting people who share the same vision, who share that same vision of using our talent and using our strength in making this world works for everybody. And that is my ultimate dream. That's my vision.
Great.
And all the coaches and all the teachers that I have met so far, they're going to be my teachers to the teaching the children at my school.
Nice.
So the nonprofit has a lot to do with leading to that. My coaching skills has a lot leading to that, and having that vision, having that idea. The following year, I mentioned about I went to Cambodia. So the reason why I went to Cambodia, it was not a pleasure trip. It's not something that I just go and travel. I went there to volunteer. So I was teaching children English. How ironic, right? Someone who didn't speak English at all.
It's very cool.
So I went there and I taught them English, and I met a lot of kids, beautiful, amazing kids, and they have so much potential if we give it to them. Yeah.
Yeah. No. When you mention education, no, I mean, educating people, I definitely agree that is it's getting ahead of the issues, right? Instead of trying to band-aid later on down the road, it's like getting to the forefront. And it's a investment way down the road too that many people don't think about, which it's good that you're thinking about it. Because I think about I say COVID right now, quarantine, and how all the I'm feeling blessed that I grew up not during this time, and I had a normal public school education where I got to be in person and have a teacher. And I'm thinking about, because we always hear about the underfunding of education just in the States in general, and now even parents are having to teach their own kids this year,
or even having access to the virtual classroom. Like yesterday, I was listening to the radio, right, and they were talking about just the LA School of Education. They estimated there's 80% of the children who have no access to the virtual classroom. And what they end up doing is they have to, their parents either spend extra money to purchase a mobile device for them so that they can attend to their class, or they're using their personal cell phones to attend those classrooms. And a lot of these underprivileged populations, that they don't have that privilege of sending each kid a mobile device.
Yeah.
So it would be one person. We pick one person out of the whole family that you get to use my cell phone. You go to class today, right? So there's that inequality just within the state that we're not really focusing on.
Yeah.
And it's really important for us to look at because it's impacting in us so many different ways, all tied in together. They're all interrelated.
Yeah. No, I think I saw there was some photo that went viral. I don't know if you saw it. It was two kids on their laptops sitting outside a Taco Bell or something. Did you see that one?
Yep.
And some celebrities kind of came out and helped do it. They funded that specific family so that those kids can have access to the internet. But it's all right, that's one. It's. I mean, it brings to light the issue. But I thought that was interesting. But yeah, education is everything. I don't know how.
I'm a big advocate for education. I believe knowledge and education is how we change the world.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, because if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's scary stuff. No,
there's always a positive out of it,
right?
No,
for sure. Because I just read. Because I've been reading more as of last November, and I read. I don't know if I read 1984 recently.
Okay. Yeah, that's
And
a great book.
yeah, and I'm like, just seeing our world in it.
Very different.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
like the control of information is a power tool for sure. So
Yep. And we can use it to our advantage.
yeah,
And I think just depending on how you want to use it, and it goes back to again that level of consciousness, how you want to use the information that's available to you.
yeah. Did you have? I guess we have about 30 minutes left. Any topics we haven't covered that you'd be curious to explore more or talk about, or I don't know. I'm a little curious of your time as a working in pharmacy and that kind of stuff. I don't know, but I'm open to going.
I'm an open book, like I said. So tell me about this curiosity about pharmacy world.
I don't know much about it at all. So like, you mentioned you got into it.
Yeah. So it was something that makes sense. So when I graduated from college, I was a science major. I was a biochem and chemistry major. And so going into pharmacy was something that makes sense for me in life.
Yeah.
Just like economic major, you go into something that has to do with finance or business world, right? So for me, pharmacy was something that made sense. And that's what my parents want me to do.
Okay.
Because they felt that physically you're disabled, so we need you to make sure that you can actually sustain yourself and make a living out of this in case we're not here anymore. Who's going to take care of you? And so I said, okay. So even though for the longest time I always wanted to be an artist, so I do painting, I paint, I do photography, and so I always had that creative side of me, and I thought I would be an artist, but no, because my mom said, how are you going to survive being an artist?
It's true. It's a true thought.
And not to mention that you're disabled, and they're not shy about pointing it out. What my physical capability is.
Yeah.
But they would just say, "Here, go figure it out." And so I went into pharmacy, and it was not something that I wanted, but I kind of just stick to it because it was easy.
Yeah, you figured.
And I have all the credit. I can just transfer all these college credit to pharmacy, and I don't have to do any extra. So it was easy.
Yeah, I covered those bases where you're like, okay, there's money here, my parents are happy, I can do it, and I could probably be good at it. Is probably where those all okay.
Yep,
Because
exactly.
I was the same way before I committed fully into the art stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, so
Not pharmacy,
it was just
but
easy, and I thought I was gonna do this for the rest of my life. And right before I started this whole personal transformational journey, I was looking into, okay, so I can function in a pharmacy because there's a lot of walking, where I was doing working in the operating room, so it was about delivering drugs, making stuff, a lot of physical activity, and I don't imagine myself being able to do that when I'm getting older, and I don't anticipate myself being retired at age 50.
yeah,
So I need to think of the long run. I start looking into, well, maybe I can apply for a management position and just be sitting behind the desk. So I look into it and I actually apply management position. But during that time, one of my friends, she was my best friend, and I had talked about it in my book. She was my best friend, and she changed her mind. She wasn't going to submit her application, but she ended up changing her mind, submitting the application, and I took it as, oh, so now because I want it, now you want it too.
Yeah.
So there's that sense of competition in there, and it turns out that that friendship didn't work out, which I was really sad about it. But it is what it is, right? But I didn't get the position, and she got it.
Shucks. It's kind of like the classic old, I like that boy. Why are you hanging out with him now? I like him. How dare you? You're not my friend anymore.
Yes. As childish as it sounds, that was my
it's true.
my thinking and my emotion, and it was that jealousy of you got it and I didn't. What is wrong with me? And it also kind of played into other aspects of my life at that time that led to this journey of wanting to do something about me and recognizing who I am. So I didn't get that position, and of course I end up, being my supervisor now. That was not something that was easy to cope with, because suddenly your best friend become your supervisor, and where are you? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of clash.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic for sure.
Very weird. And she's looking for my support. She's a very strong person, and I give her a lot of credit for that. She's a very strong person. She know exactly what she wants. But because of that, I saw that as you are picking on me. Like, there's a lot of times where I felt I was being the target. I felt like all the decision that she was making, the comments, the sarcastic comment that she was making, it was all towards me.
Yeah.
So I was not happy. I was not happy. I was not motivated, and let alone, my other aspects of personal journey. I was just not in a good place. So I started looking into, is pharmacy really something that I want to do for the rest of my life? Is this what I wanted? And I found out
Yeah,
that
yeah,
no,
the answer is no.
this is not something that I wanted. It definitely sustained. It definitely bring income for me. It's a steady income. It's a great position.
Yeah.
I go in and I work 12 hours, and rest of the time I have it all to myself. And in the past, it's the same amount of time that I had in the past and I have now, but I never look at it as, what can I use this time and do something productive for myself. So then I look into coaching. I came across coaching, and I love that idea of being able to inspire someone and just sitting there. And the best thing I love about coaching is that you can have that one-on-one moment, and it was something about what you said or the question that you had asked. It caused that person to take a moment and say, ah, aha. And it's that aha moment that I truly enjoy. And you can see their facial expression, how they changes, and
See
you
the
can
little
hear
processing up there.
there's a
Can,
light that light up.
yeah.
Like a very comic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it just light up in them, and they know the answer. Like, they know what to do for their next step. And that's what I truly enjoy for being there and just sitting with them. And a lot of time I do it by phone. So I don't even do it by in person. And there's so much.
Like video chat phone or just
No, just
voice?
voice.
Oh.
There's so much information that you can get from just hearing the other person's voice. Is that person shy? Is that person open? And I have this amazing gift. I'm not shy about calling it out. I have this amazing gift of,
Sure, I
of
like it.
making people vulnerable. So there are times where I could be in the airport and waiting for my flight, and I would be talking to a stranger, like sitting next to me, and that stranger, after a couple of exchange and sentences and about our life, that person will always cry.
You're making people cry over
I,
here. Okay.
yeah, I always make people cry, and I didn't see
Yeah.
that as a gift, and later on I saw that as a gift, because you know, for someone to sit there talking to a stranger and being truly open and sharing how they're feeling, what struggle they're going through, that is a gift.
Well, it's I think okay, yeah, because I here's my interpretation of that. I feel, and you could tell me if you feel the same way, that authenticity breeds authenticity. So you being yourself and being open with somebody else, they can feel that and their walls come down, and like they're not used to that because everybody else around them isn't you with your authentic self. So it creates the environment of it's safe for me to, and then and being that people aren't used to it, they just like crumble and cry because it's a new thing, it's a new
I
feeling.
in a way, yes, but what I would disagree is that authenticity authenticity is contagious.
Okay.
When you are authentic and you show up being genuine and being vulnerable and open up yourself to another person, that would influence the other person to open up to you. That person
Right.
may
Yeah. Yeah.
create a lot of walls. So I think it's that like energy attracts like energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So
I agree. I think that's what I said.
So what I heard was that you both have to be authentic,
Oh, no,
right?
no. I try to say I said authenticity breeds
Yeah.
authenticity. So you being authentic opens up the door to them. Whatever. I think we're on the same
We're on
page.
the same page.
Okay, great. I was hoping for a disagreement there, but
I think we're on the same page.
I'm gonna say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's definitely a useful skill for that. Yeah, for what you
Yeah,
do.
I would say I'm pretty talented in that space. I
Hmm.
make people cry all the time. So I truly I truly enjoy talking and speaking with people
Hmm.
and just really understanding, what is it that I can do for them. And a lot of time, I wouldn't be in a coaching session. I would be just having a random conversation, and there's just something that I share, it touches them,
Hmm.
and it makes them wanted to get up and start to do something that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have never done before.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm just thinking about crying in general is good. Crying is good, right? Yeah, it's like
Crying is good.
it's an emotion that's not as tapped as other emotions where we don't really we push it down a lot, we hide
Hmm.
it, and then but sometimes you just got to feel it and let it out, you know?
Crying is a way of releasing our energy,
Hmm.
and I believe that everything is energy. Like the things that we touch, right? Everything is
Hmm.
energy. It's a very Einstein way of looking at things. Every molecules and
Yeah, yeah.
nuclear, it's all energy. So you and I here, we're being here. Our physical body is in energy. Our emotion is in energy. So there's nothing good or bad about the energy itself. It's about how we perceive and how we interpret these energy that we hold inside of us that determines how we're going to behave and operate in this world. So crying itself is actually a release of that
Hmm.
energy.
Hmm.
That energy can be bad and that energy could be good. There's tear of joy, there's tear of sadness, right? So regardless which form it is, it's a release of energy. And if someone is crying when they're inspired, that was completely appropriate for that moment because that's what needs to come out. That's what
Hmm.
needs to be released.
Hmm.
And same thing with words. There are times where I blunt out something because those are the words that need to be heard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speak your mind.
Speak your mind, feel your feelings. Um, yeah, I'm I'm not sure where to take it, but I'm thinking about I don't know. I'm thinking about people that okay how negative self talk. I'm not sure. Okay, I don't want to rehash the same topics, but like where I don't know how do people get from the stage of thinking there's something wrong with them to wanting help? Like, what is?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the
How
biggest
do
that's
you
the
get to
biggest
the next
hurdle.
step?
Yeah.
Kind of things. Yeah. So there's stepwise process. Being aware is your step number one.
Hmm.
Being aware of something is not working, what is wrong with me, or something is going against me, the force. So being aware, awareness is step number one, or being mindful, right? Once you get to awareness, your next step is acceptance.
Yeah.
Acceptance is where you realize something is not working. What is not working, and what is it that you're trying to fight? What is it that you are resisting? And we're changing every single day. So if you're resisting something, that means you're trying to hold on to a fact that you cannot change. You're trying to
Hmm.
control the
Hmm.
uncontrollable, right? So accepting that the only thing that you have control is yourself and how you show up in this
Right.
world,
Right.
right? So that's acceptance. And once you get to acceptance, so the next question would be, what is it that you need to connect with.
Yeah. Because my assumption is that the most of the people that you interact with, I feel like people are in a stage where they're having issues breaking through to that next stage where they want to be a certain thing. They maybe don't know why, and that's kind of maybe where you come in. But yeah, no, I'm
Most people I interact with, they're on their third stage.
okay. Yeah,
They already realize that something is not working, but they haven't quite accept or let go
yeah. Mm-hmm.
of what is not working. They're still trying to control the things that they cannot control. So they're lingering between that stage where they're focusing on the acceptance. Okay, I can change, but what can I do about it? Right? So your next stage, like I said, is about connection. It's also about taking responsibilities. When you start taking responsibility, you start looking into what is it that I can do this moment to get myself to have a change. And so those are the type of population that people I'm working with, is that they already realize that there's that acceptance, there's that awareness, and now they're taking their responsibility in
Yeah.
changing, in creating that change. But how do you get to it? So how do you get to it is through practice. You don't,
Yeah.
I can't sit you down in a session and go through that whole concept of being authentic, being brave,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
having
yeah,
that
yeah.
connection without you actually wanting to carry it into your
Mm-hmm.
everyday practice.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to take it into practice, it's a big struggle for a lot of people, because that commitment that we're talking about, right? So in order to commit to being authentic,
Yeah, because I mean the risk that I see is there's a chance that they aren't the person they want to be. Is the risk there? Because I just had there was an interaction that I kind of witnessed. Maybe what's today? Friday.
today is Friday.
So just a couple days ago, where we're having like a group hangout, and one of the people spoke up at some point with like these existential thoughts about like, I don't know if like I want to be an actor anymore. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I'm happy doing what I want. If this is what I even want to do. And they're like, but they're like, but don't listen to me. Like I'm just being crazy. I'll get over it. I'll get past this. And
Mm.
someone else was like, yeah, it's just a phase. You'll like just keep, you'll get through it. And then I'm thinking, maybe what you're feeling is actually the answer, and you maybe don't want to be an actor anymore. So don't shy away from those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
They're real.
Did you tell him that?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
I mentioned it, but there's still like the self doubt of maybe my feelings are wrong,
Yes.
which is, yeah, I don't.
So a lot of people who started to awaken to that higher level of thinking or higher level of consciousness, they start to doubt themselves for having them. Right? They start waking up to, well, maybe this is not really something that I want, but they doubted themselves for having that idea of, maybe this is not something that I want. How you recognize it is that you look at your values, you look at your why, right? Why did you even first start it? What was your reason for being an actor? What did you hope to have in your life by being an actor? Maybe you want to entertain others, maybe you want to make money, which is great. But what was your why? Why did you even start it, right? So looking into whenever people have that doubt, I always ask them like, so how hard is what you're feeling now aligned or not in alignment with the value that you have? And for me, that ABC was my values. But for someone else, maybe it's integrity, maybe it's in honesty, maybe it's that family. If any one of those values is
Yeah.
out of alignment, so it makes perfect sense why maybe I don't want to be an actor anymore, because actor is not allowing me to exercise my value, to bring out my value. And here I am in a group. Maybe I want to be with my family, so I don't want to be an actor anymore.
Yeah. Because then sometimes what I see people doing too is they have the classic thought of, well, maybe if I do this next thing, like make this short film, and I act in it, like that'll reach, like that'll fix it. I'll be happy.
We're hoping for the next best thing, and it's a perfectly
Yeah.
normal
Yeah.
to
No,
be
no, for
that
sure.
way. Yeah,
Normal.
yeah,
Yeah.
because we're always hoping for the next thing, and that would bring us something, and that would satisfy us. but we never took the time to really truly understand what is it that we're truly looking for. So a lot of time what you want is not what you need, right?
Yeah.
What we want in our life is that stability, is that life fulfillment, that enjoyment and happiness and being purposeful. But what we needed is a roof over our house, our head, and it's a family that we can go home to. Those are the things that we need. But the outcome of it
Yeah.
is that joy and happiness behind it. Yeah.
For sure. We'll close out. One thing that just came to my mind that I guess I'll just ask you about, because you've traveled, is what's the value of travel for you? Like when you mentioned the goal of the seven wonders, the ancient wonders, why?
Connection.
Right. Oh, connection. Okay. Yeah. So.
It's a connection because I love meeting people. I love having conversations because you learn so much about the other person and also about another culture. And so when I travel, I love to speak to people. And when I speak to people, I ask their stories. And I'm a big storyteller. I'm a big storytelling
Yeah.
because through I think we interact through our storytelling. You had a story, I had a story, and somewhere in our story there's element that collide with each other, and that's how we can relate to each other even though we may not speak the same language, but there's stories and elements in our story that is similarity. And so I love traveling because it gives me opportunity to meet other people, to learn another culture, to speak another language. So now I know how to speak Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
As simple as Buenos dias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're seeking. All right. So you enjoy the connection aspect of it. Is it only the people, or do you also the connection with the space too? Like, do you what do you?
Everything,
Yeah.
everything, the whole package. Because so a couple of years ago, I went to New Zealand and I went to Queensland, and you look around. That's a great place where people a lot of adventures, bungee jumping, skydiving, and there's
Yeah.
also ice skating. But you look around you. There's mountain, there's landscape, and there you are standing among huge mountain landscape. And what do you realize? You realize,
You're tiny.
thank you. Yes, how tiny you are, how insignificant the problem that you have in your hand. That's how insignificant it is. I love drawing, so I do a lot of doodling on my free time. And one of the doodle that I drew was there's a big circle, and there's a little tiny dot on the side. So your big circle is the world, the universe, and that little tiny dot is me.
That's you.
And I remember I did that when I was going through some very troubling time, and I drew a dialogue box. I said help.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's lonely.
It was lonely.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, for sure. Yeah, because for me, I I struggle with travel. Like, I know sometimes I get pessimistic about travel. Like, so what if I hike this certain mountain? I've hiked mountains before, but like Machu Picchu sounds awesome because that's not just a mountain. Like, I enjoy the history. Like, I
You'll love it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's so much history in the Cusco.
Because I I was like a photographer on this one trip to where we took some Native American veterans to Washington D.C. to like tour all the landmarks and stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's history here. But I'm like, it's just American history.
Yeah.
There's like not much American history. So I was trying to fathom being in those other places like Egypt and stuff. Like, I can't imagine seeing the pyramids. Like, that would probably blow my mind. So
Yeah.
I have a love hate with travel. I go, what am I gonna do? Because I'm so productive minded that I'm just like, I've got my goal. So I don't know how you combat that with the goals that you want to do. But like, when stuff sidetracks me from my what's it called? The
The
tunnel
vision.
vision?
The vision.
My tunnel vision.
So goals are just mile markers.
Yeah.
They're mile markers
Yeah, for
along the
sure.
way, right? So how you get there, it's a process. It's a
Yeah.
journey. So we keep going to reaching our mile markers through our journey. So every time you have a goal, that is not a goal, is not your
Yeah,
journey.
yeah. So you're not too worried about when the goal is accomplished,
Yep.
as long as it's still
As soon as it's
there.
there.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way of seeing it. I
Yeah.
like it. I just got to figure out where I want to go next and when I'm gonna do
Peru.
it.
Machu Picchu.
Peru.
He's gonna go to Machu Picchu.
Going to Machu Picchu. I guess it's decided.
Yeah, that's already decided.
Yeah, no, it sounds awesome. But I think we're good. I will leave it at that.
Okay.
Unless you have any final thoughts on anything else, but thanks for talking to me about Perfectly Normal and all of your stuff. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty more that I actually could dig into with, because I guess the most interesting thing for me is I like knowing that we have different backgrounds and stuff, and it's like, oh, we're different people. It always frustrates me when I'm talking to somebody who's like, oh, we've done all the same stuff and you look like me. This is weird. Like too samey is not fun. So,
And I love the fact that this is also tied back to the traveling part. There's so many people I meet. They're so different from me, and I'm just very different physically. Right? There's no doubt about that. And when I start talking to people, I realize that there's so much of the same quality that we all have. Right? So the fact that we see beauty is because we already are beautiful in our heart.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's one of my frustrations with our planet actually is the borders thing.
Yeah.
It creates the I don't like the team aspect of you see people differently almost by default because of whatever reasons when we're all the same.
Yeah. And I feel
weird.
Again, I'm very optimistic about that. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are waking up to it and they're realizing that, your feeling is the same as the way I feel about happiness, about sadness, and about our journey, whether it's tragic or whether it's something that's very challenging. We all been there, done that, and it was the same hero that you have is inside of me.
And on that, thanks again for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye.